Yes. So in our previous classes, we were talking about the the important function of ATP. So what is that important function of ATP is it is the energy currency of the cells in the sense that it is the hydrolysis of ATP, the reaction, which is coupled with a number of endergonic reactions, which have to be conducted by the cell for its survival. Now, let us consider that cell uses ATP to do all these endergonic reactions. What happens to ATP now? Automatically, ATP doesn't last forever. Like any other source of energy, even continuous usage of ATP should extinguish it. In the sense, should make it the stocks of the ATP or the levels of the ATPs in the cytoplasm should get over. So what should the cell do now? The cell has to synthesize ATP. So as it is using ATPs, simultaneously it should be synthesizing ATPs also. Otherwise the cell dies if the ATP stock is over. So now today's discussion will be what are the ways in which ATP is synthesized by the cell. Okay. So before we see the ways, let us ask this question. How much energy is required to make an ATP from ADP? To make a mole of ATP, let us consider from ADP. So the answer would be given by looking at how much energy is released when ATP is converted to hydrolyzed to ADP, is it not? So how much energy is released when ATP is hydrolyzed to ADP? It is about 7.3 kilocalories per mole, or in the joules unit, it is 30.5 kilojoules per mole. So the hydrolysis of ATP releases so much energy means how is ATP synthesized? Through a reverse reaction. What is the forward reaction? ATP hydrolyzed to ADP. What should be the reverse reaction? ADP is phosphorylated to ATP. So how much energy would this reverse reaction require? So from the laws of thermodynamics, we can answer these questions very easily. If the forward reaction is exergonic, the law tells the backward reaction is equally endothermic. So from our cellular reactions point of view, if we have to modify this law a bit and tell, if the ATP hydrolysis is exergonic, please follow this carefully. If ATP hydrolysis is exergonic, ATP synthesis by the way of the reverse reaction, that is ATP hydrolysis is exergonic, forward reaction. The backward reaction is phosphorylation of ADP, that will be endergonic. So how much energy is required to phosphorylate ADP into ATP is so much. It's 7.3 kilocalories per mole or 30.5 kilojoules per mole. So much energy is required. So now how a cell can find a source of this much energy to make ATP? That's the question, right? See, for all other energy requiring reaction, ATP hydrolysis was coupled because ATP hydrolysis was exergonic. So to make an ATP, that's the endergonic reaction, can it couple with hydrolysis of ATP? Definitely not. Why? Because the net energy change would be zero, because ATP hydrolysis is 7.3 kilocalories minus and ATP synthesis is plus 7.3 kilocalories. So if you couple these things, net you will get delta G is equal to 0. That cannot happen. That becomes a futile cycle, in fact. So now what should the cell do? The cell should find some reactions, or at least a reaction minimum, or some reactions, few reactions, which when conducted release more energy than 7.3 kilocalories per mole. Do you understand why more energy is required? Because to make a mole of ATP, 7.3 kilocalories is required. So now the cell has to find a reaction. When the reaction is conducted, more than 7.3 kilocalories of energy should be released. Then such a reaction can be coupled with ATP synthesis. Is it not? So in nutshell, coupling energy coupling reaction to make ATP should be having a higher delta G than ATP hydrolysis itself. So much more exergonic reaction should be there. That has to be coupled. So, but till now, the only exergonic reaction we have seen is what? ATP hydrolysis. Now we will see some more reactions which are much more exergonic than ATP hydrolysis. So which are those reactions? Now look at this chart. This is a chart giving you a general picture of delta G for hydrolysis of some bonds, particular type of bonds in biology. So can you see this bond? A carboxylic anhydride bond. If a carboxylic anhydride bond is hydrolyzed, how much energy is liberated? Minus 20 kilocalories per mole. Okay. And if a phosphoenol pyruvate bond is hydrolyzed, minus 15 kilocalories per mole is liberated. Similarly, a phosphoric acid carboxylic acid mixed anhydride is hydrolyzed, minus 10 to 12 kilocalories is liberated. And a bond like this, which is present in creatinine, hydrolyzed 10 kilocalories per mole. And like carboxylic anhydride, you can also have phosphoric anhydride. When this is hydrolyzed, 7.5 kilocalories per mole is liberated. That is what happens in the hydrolysis of ATP. Is it not? What bond is hydrolyzed in the hydrolysis of ATP? Phosphoric acid anhydride, or simply phosphoanhydride. So this reaction cannot be coupled to make ATP because 7.5 minus and plus 7.5 both cancel each other. Therefore, the cell has to find some molecules which contain these bonds. Okay, which contain these bonds. Which type of bonds? Anhydride bonds, enol pyruvate phosphate ester bonds, mixed anhydride bonds, something like this. These bonds should be present in the molecules. Now the question is, are there molecules in the cell which have these bonds so that they can be hydrolyzed, derived a lot of energy which can be used for ATP coupling? In fact, there are some molecules. You look at this molecule, a very small molecule, and the name of the molecule is phosphoenol pyruvate. Phosphoenol pyruvate belongs to the second category of bond containing molecule, phosphoenol pyruvate. When phosphoenol pyruvate is hydrolyzed, minus 15 kilocalories per mole is liberated. So this minus 15 kilocalories per mole can be coupled with ADP phosphorylation, which requires plus 7.5 kilocalories per mole. So phosphoenol pyruvate becomes just pyruvic acid. And what happens? This phosphate group that is transferred to ADP and ATP is made. Do you understand this? So how is ATP synthesized? By the transfer of phosphate group from phosphoenol pyruvate to ADP. Fine. But is this the only reaction which gives ATP? No, there are few more reactions. One more example which I am giving is a molecule called 1,3-diphosphoglyceric acid. It is also called 1,3-diphosphoglycerate. That transfers its group from one of its carboxylic acids to ADP. ADP becomes ATP. And diphosphoglycerate becomes monophosphoglycerate. As the previous example, even this is the case of hydrolysis of a phosphoenol pyruvate bond. So that would, no, I'm sorry. This is the case. Okay, I'm sorry. Please excuse me. This is the case of hydrolysis of Carboxylic acid, phosphoric acid, mixed anhydride bond. See this? Carboxylic acid for, anyways, what does this P represent? The P simply represents a phosphate group. P double bond O, single bond O, O minus O. This is abbreviated or represented as P in the biochemical reactions. So whenever you have P here, you place, imagine a phosphate group here. That's it. So what is the energy released when phosphocarboxylic mixed anhydride is hydrolyzed? Minus 10 to minus 12 kilocalories. That is more than enough, because ADP to ATP requires only 7.3 kilocalories. This reaction is liberating more than 10 kilocalories. So that can be used to make ATP from ADP. So these reactions can be classified into a broader heading and a very important heading called substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, so how is ATP synthesized? The direct answer would be through substrate level phosphorylation. What is substrate level phosphorylation? Substrate level phosphorylation is transfer of a phosphate group from a molecule to ADP to obtain ATP. And what is the energetic of that molecule which is giving phosphate group to ADP? It is much more high energetic than ATP itself. So phosphoenol pyruvate, 1,3-diphosphoglycerate, and we also have some more examples like succinyl CoA. So these are all very high energetic molecules, which can be hydrolysis of which phosphate bond hydrolysis can be coupled with synthesis of ATP. So this is called substrate level phosphorylation. So hope you understood the concept, substrate level phosphorylation. Now, I mean, again, our question doesn't end here. Okay, ATP is made from phosphoenol pyruvate. Let us think in that way. But if ATP is continuously being synthesized using phosphoenol pyruvate, the stock of phosphoenol pyruvate goes down in the cytoplasm. What replenishes this? What renews the stock of phosphoenol pyruvate now? Exactly. Or what renews the stock of 1,3-diphosphoglycerate? There should be some source for them. What is the source? The source is nutrient molecules, carbohydrates and lipids. So these two are the intermediates which are formed during glycolysis. So the glycolysis gives phosphoenol pyruvate as well as diphosphoglycerate. They make ATPs. And what is required for glycolysis? The substrate, glucose. So the cell has to be continuously taking glucose. Okay. Now maybe that when we were in schools, somebody would ask a question like this: why do we require food? Why do we require food? The answer we would used to give then was, we require food to get energy, because food is the source of energy. Now, if I ask the question now at this stage, why do we require food? Of course, you can still give that answer to get energy, but that's a very broad way of looking at. If you want to answer this very specifically, why do we require glucose? The answer would be, the glucose is required to give intermediates like phosphoenol pyruvate and diphosphoglycerate. Why they are required? To synthesize ATP through substrate level phosphorylation. So since ATP is our energy currency, cell's energy currency, any reaction which makes ATP and the molecules involved in that reaction, if they are derived from food molecules like glucose and other carbohydrates, we can just tell that the food is required to give us energy. But the mechanism of how that energy is given, that's what we are discussing. Substrate level phosphorylation. Okay. Now, of course, this doesn't end here, the story of making ATPs. We have just addressed one part of making ATPs through substrate level phosphorylation. There is one more part, one more mechanism of making ATPs through oxidative phosphorylation. Anyways, so what is oxidative phosphorylation? We are going to learn in detail in the coming classes. But as of now, what all things we can tell is this much. The synthesis of ATP takes place through two ways. One way is substrate level phosphorylation. The other way is oxidative phosphorylation. Anyways, substrate level phosphorylation is by the direct transfer of phosphate group from high energy molecules like phosphoenol pyruvate or diphosphoglycerate to ADP. But what is oxidative phosphorylation? The mechanism is entirely different. This doesn't involve transfer of phosphate group from high energy molecules. It involves a completely new set of machinery in the cells to carry out oxidative phosphorylation. What is that machinery and what is the mechanism of oxidative phosphorylation? We will discuss in our coming classes. Fine. So I think we can stop here. So if you have any doubts, please.